Good evening and welcome to Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. What a great honor and a privilege to be sitting opposite one of our very formidable journalists in this country. She's an award-winning journalist, widely known for covering in-depth and complex political issues while giving a platform to marginalized communities, giving them a voice. She's worked on stories that have spanned across the globe and has traversed difficult narratives with the aim of holding people accountable. She's confronted politicians on many occasions forcefully, and the only journalist who has confronted two presidents at a media briefing. Former President Thabo Mbeki as well as former President Jacob Zuma know her well. She boasts a career that's taken her from being a religious student in Iran to the field and then to the studio. We remember her as a primetime news anchor and a favorite of ours, and with her experience in a wide range of media, Iman can finally add author to that list. But for many of you, you may know her voice and infamous daily intros followed by her lyrical poems and odes such as Act Your Age, Don't Be Hard on Yourself, You Are Gold, Be Brave, Leave Your Mark and Live. And here is Iman Rapetti in studio, and she's got one of her daily odes for you.
Well, after that intro, I don't know if there's anything else I need to say. But this, I kind of picked up, and I think it resonates for us, Anele.
Please.
There is such a freedom in being able to be real, to be able to lift up your shirt, let down your guard, and show someone your scars without them flinching or recoiling in horror, without you fearing that once you show them, they will run away from you. How wonderful to be with someone or around people who love you for your pretty and your ugly, your loud and your soft, your ignorance and your intellect, who realize that it is the salt as well as the sugar that give life its flavor. May you draw those people into your life if you have had to live in the shadow of an illusion, afraid to stand in the light of your imperfect fullness. You deserve to be loved as you are.
Oh, do you know where that takes me? Immediately, right? In your book, you talk about how much you love the ocean, and it's so peaceful for you, and it's so healing. And, you know, after having 3 kids, like, you're a bit self-conscious when you're there, but you find you rock your costume, and finally, when you're in the water, you almost feel like it's covering you from all the judgmental stares. That's exactly what you're telling yourself, that, you know, it's fine. It's fine.
And it is, isn't it wonderful to be in a place of insularity almost? Because the voices outside often tend to make you question yourself, but not in positive ways. Not in ways that help you to resolve your own questions, but in ways that are judgmental and put you on the defensive. We have to move into a space where we can own ourselves as we are.
Would you not say your mom kind of pushed you in that way? Because I know you say, you know, sometimes she'd be embarrassing and she'd be dressed over the top and funny, the red lips, which, by the way, are your trademark. As I read you saying you used to judge your mom for her red lips, I closed the book, I'm like, hey man, but they're the red lips. So clearly, it's something that you've embraced about your mother and ultimately about yourself.
Our first schoolrooms are our mother's feet, aren't they?
They are.
That's where we learn. We learn our ability to struggle through her struggle. We owe a lot of who we are, Anele, to our mothers and to the women figures in our communities, our grandmothers and our aunties. And that kind of irreverence, which, as I say in the book, used to a little bit like when I was a kid, eventually morphed into something which was a realization that here was a woman who was in her power, who could withstand judgment and still own herself. And even as young women, you and I know that that's part of our daily struggle. Every day we second guess, we subject ourselves to external criticism. But we have to rest in the belief that whatever we have is within ourselves. And I sound like those motivational speakers now. I need to stop. You're leading me down this path, Anele.
But you know what? I love it because we're used to you as Iman.
That face too.
You know, I know, you know, these news anchors, they do this thing where it means business. Eh? You must, if you ever a news anchor is interviewing you and she does this, you must know, Papa.
It's coming.
It's coming, and at a rapid pace. So I like that this is you, and you know, you relaxed and you've written this book. Okay, so you write the odes, I get that, and you've done it for a while. When did you start writing? Because like I was saying to you before we went on air, is that you write your book is good. It's good.
Really?
It is engaging. It is funny. I didn't know you were this funny. People have told me Iman's hilarious. But your book, it's a little bit of everything. It's that sugar and spice you were speaking about earlier on.
Well, thank you so much, because I think like this moment for me represents generosity. Here you are as a powerful, empowered young woman offering a platform to another woman. And slowly that energy and that spirit is taking hold of our country. What it does do is allow us to find the keys to unlock all of the kind of hidden treasures in ourselves, the things that we were afraid to say, or even the things that we were afraid to do. I've been writing since I was a kid. I would hide letters under my bed, hoping that my mother wouldn't find them. But throughout this whole journey and writing on my radio program every day, it's allowed me to own my voice and to respect my own voice. We're very good at respecting other people's voices and creating, you know, a cocoon around them, a cocoon of protection and affirmation, but we don't do it for ourselves. And I started to do that, and perhaps in some ways this book is a representation of self-affirmation.
You're very free in the book, right? You talk about...
Do I talk too much?
No, you do sound like you talk a lot, but I mean, that's okay. I mean, you're talking to me. Come now. Game recognizes game, all right? But it's very honest and it's very free, and you talk about farting, and you talk about, yourself.
I'll try to behave, Anele.
I hope we caught that. And you talk about, like, yourself as a sexual being. There was a point when I was like, I love how vulnerable and naked you are. Did you feel exposed when you were writing this book?
I mean, there's a lot that I don't say. So if you think that's a lot, then you can only wonder what lies, deep inside the abyss.
Oh,
wink,
I can't
wink.
wait for 2.0.
But I think the important thing is, I mean, as you get older, and you become a lot more mature about things.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we take relationships and how we present ourselves to people so seriously. I think we plan things too much. We're too deliberate about things.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to be able to be in a space to free flow. And I was hoping, really, that with telling my story, I mean, look, I don't know, I'm just grateful if people read it, and if they find resonance, that is awesome. But what I kind of was hoping for also is that if we can see reflections of ourselves in other people's vulnerabilities, in their failures, in their doubts about themselves, it actually allows us to address those anomalies or those deficiencies in ourselves.
The first time I found myself relating to something you said was when you're speaking about your mom, that she was always half apologetic, and then when you said your sister, you wish she'd be her real self, but the familiarity, the chains of familiarity of living in the hood, kind of, well, this is what I know, this is what I know, this is what I can do. And I find that my sister's also like that. So I found myself nodding, throughout your whole book. But another thing that stood out for me was the fact that you were saying you used to watch TV at your neighbor's house, and it was a little humiliating, but your need to watch TV was far greater than the fact that you felt humiliated. When you're watching TV at your neighbor's house, is anywhere in your mind thinking that one day I am going to be on several television stations and be very good at it?
Well, thank you for the compliment, by the way. I love that. We don't have any, I don't think we can formulate the future, in definition, in high definition.
Yeah.
So for me, the question of when people ask, what do you want to be in 5 years' time? For me, it's a little bit ridiculous because you don't know how you change, you don't know how your preferences change.
Okay.
But what is constant, I think, throughout our lives is a kind of, maybe a spirit of defiance, a seed that is planted there out of circumstances like that. I didn't ever want to need anything from anyone because I didn't like how it felt. I didn't like that someone could have power over me because of stuff that they had. And so I knew that I was going to have a life where it wouldn't be dependent on someone else's generosity.
Okay.
But what that has also created, I think, is the converse, Anele, is that I also don't want to impose that humiliation. I don't want to be the agent for someone else's humiliation. I don't want to be the agent for someone else's feeling less than. So it comes with a kind of twin responsibility and consciousness.
Ooh. I don't want to be the agent for someone else's humiliation. Have you ever found yourself that you were there or you were halfway there and either you had to apologize to someone for feeling like you'd humiliated them? Have you ever found yourself in that?
It's human, right?
Yeah.
It's human, and which I think segues into this notion of role modeling. When people see you or people like I, who just happen to have jobs on television, we're not really that special, actually.
Or that perfect.
Well, precisely.
Or that perfect.
And so people must extract from your life, from my life, other people who are hyperexposed or exposed. Take what is useful out of their lives, but be prepared that they will let you down, because we were human. I've done things sometimes, but in the moment you realize, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. And you can see a grief-stricken look past somebody's face. I never want to be in that situation ever again. So I try to practice higher consciousness in how I deal with people. It's easy to love. It's easy to love. It's easy to just hold back just a little bit.
Man, her childhood filled with memories of oil-stained clothing from all the delicious traditional home-cooked meals and treats made by her mama. What's fascinating and humorous is that she calls Phoenix the place where she grew up in, the original Twitter. I want to unpack this. I want to find out more about what used to trend in the streets of Phoenix. We'll be back after the break. Iman Rapetti's family moved to Phoenix in the 1980s, but her biggest dilemma was straddling between her colored identity from her mother's side and her Indian identity from her father's family, battling to fit into both communities. She was colored in Unit 13 and Indian in Red Hill, with each social setting amplifying the stigma of not completely being enough. But Iman suffered many untold psychological traumas: a father who was rejected by his family because he married a colored woman, and siblings that came through the window when the doors of honesty were closed. This is Real Talk. This is the real Iman. And I can tell you one thing, okay, about this book, is that all it made me want was for the next book to be a cookbook. And you can call it my mama's recipes.
Oh, wow.
The trotters and beans.
Oh, yes, Lord.
Listen, when you're talking about annually you guys go to Pietermaritzburg to visit your mother, and you know that as soon as you get there, she's stained because she's been cooking because she knows you guys are coming home.
Yeah.
I'm just like, can they please release the goods? What smell immediately takes you back home?
Well, trotters and beans, number one, Anele, sadly, hence the hips. And when you've grown up in the language of food, because food was always the compensation for every kind of fullness that you couldn't have access to.
That's
the fullness
true.
of material wealth or all of those things.
Yeah.
So they made it work for them. And I don't know, my mother used to conjure up the most magnificent dishes. And whenever I go home, it's the simple food. Well, now it's become very expensive, apparently, in Phoenix to buy trotters. It's become quite a delicacy. But
And your book is not going to help. It's going to make it even, you know?
But it's so wonderful because it puts you back at the feet of familiarity in this ever-changing world and this kind of, you know, schizophrenic world in which we live. And also where you can't like trust people in spaces, but you go home and you put that, you dish up your trotters and your beans and you're sitting there with your roti or your piece of white bread.
What did your mother say? Real Rama butter.
Yeah, pure butter Rama.
There we go.
Pure butter
Pure
Rama.
butter Rama, right? So do you know how to cook like that? Are you somewhere?
Of course, honey.
How did you learn? How did you?
Okay, full disclosure, Anele. Trotters and beans, it's a bit of a skill, I think.
Yeah.
But my favorite, my signature dish is butter chicken. So you've got to come and have butter chicken
All right,
at my
you
house
see that
one of these
cookbook?
days.
See now,
Yeah.
we're already.
I think it's going to happen.
Now we're in 2
It must
recipes
happen.
already. I'm just telling
Don't you love? I mean, cooking is amazing, right? And it's so
therapeutic.
It's so cathartic. Absolutely.
Because you also say that you didn't grow up telling each other that you love each other, your dad and your mom, but you always showed each other that you love each other. Would you say your mom showed you guys through food how much she loved you?
It was definitely her lexicon of love.
Yeah. And wasn't it difficult for her to constantly be in love mode when she's fighting your father's family who don't like her?
You know what's so interesting, and I write about this in the book, like in our communities, you know how we grew up, Anele. You can't have a conversation with adults. You know, you can't be there when adults are talking. Kids must be seen and not heard. And so it kind of also reached into your interpersonal relationships with your parents.
Yeah.
There were things you couldn't really ask them. There were boundaries of disclosure. And so, you know, you kind of, you left it to them to manage. You left it to them to manage. I couldn't ask her about my father and why he beat her up when we were growing up.
But when your father's siblings are talking ill of her in front of you, you know, do they still expect you to act like you didn't hear anything?
A lot of this was happening when we were very young. And you know, with family relationships, they're so complex. Over the years, things changed. Over the years, things got easier. And now we have a really great relationship with our cousins, the second generation.
Yes.
So we've tried to rekindle those relationships. But the stuff between the adults was, I mean, that stuff was real. That stuff went down. And I think my mother still bears a lot of that wounding, a lot of that scars, a lot of those scars. And I think it's a lesson for all of us. Let people love each other.
Yeah.
Let people live together if they love each other. As families, you shouldn't stand in their way.
How do those rifts between your father's family and your mother contribute to you struggling to fit in? You know, what do you identify with? Are you colored? Are you Indian?
Well, this is the interesting thing. In South Africa, we're so big on labels. You know, who are we? Because identity was a highly contested space, especially during apartheid. I mean, it was, you know, our then government's, the regime's plan to make people completely schizophrenic about themselves and to otherize and hate each other because it was part of their game plan to keep us divided. And so, even to this day, I mean, for me, I'm a black South African. I'm politically black. I hold on to Biko as if it's a, you know, as if it's a lifeline.
Yeah.
But it's interesting growing up. It wasn't overt, though. That's the thing. You kind of felt that frisson of condescension, you know? And as I write in the book, in Phoenix, for example, if an Indian mummy, you know, her precious son, and sons are big for Indian parents, by the way, knew that he would like a colored girl, there was already inbuilt this expectation that she would be a looser girl. She would be, you know, not up to the family's standards of respectability. It was never really said, but it was always for me in the air. And I don't think that my friends could relate to that, but I know that I felt that very acutely.
So now these things, when in hindsight, you can look at them and they look like such challenges and what a terrible time. But when you're in it, you're growing up and life is fun and all you want to do is go across the street and play with your friend, you know, get home, watch TV. So I find that these were although like speed humps, I find that they were character builders in our lives, which is why you're so textured, which is why you can interview anyone, which is why you can live anywhere, which is why you can survive anywhere, because you went through all these things that now look like such challenges. Do you not worry that our children don't have these layer builders, where you are layered, where you are more than just one person and you can exist in any space because of the things that you went through?
I certainly think that from a sensorial or an experiential perspective, kids are much more insular. I mean, we used to play with the kids in the street, turning cartwheels till your panties are showing and your mother gives you a smack on your bum, right? You're jumping up and down with the boys outside because of the fear in our society, fear of crime, the fear of abuse or whatever. We really manage our children really well. But the trouble is, it's opened up a different kind of Pandora's box in the digital space. We don't know what they're getting up to. We don't know who their teachers are. We don't know what their filters are. We have less of a track on what their interests are. Our parents knew we liked 5 stones, playing elastic in the street or whatever, and hopscotch. But our children, we're not entirely sure. So the responsibility, I think, on us as parents is to be more engaged, actively involved, taking a deeper interest in our children's lives. And I'm fortunate that my children, we can have great conversations. They know where we stand politically. They know where we stand in terms of deity and God and all of those things. I think they're pretty fairly evolved, given this new construct of parenting.
What's so important for you to instill in them that was instilled in you in the streets of the original Twitter Phoenix?
Stories used to fly, hey? And there's a whole dedication to Auntie Mali, who used to sit on the steps and watch life in the 13th row by. She knew everything. She knew everything. But, you know, sorry, what was the question again?
What do you want your kids to have that you have from Phoenix?
Love. Love. And for me, love is a language that supersedes where you come from, where you live. And having generosity and not being so skeptical and so cynical about life. I think that even though I went through those experiences as a child, where my aperture was far wider compared to children today, love is the ultimate language that we have left. You know, it's to understand where people come from. People come from different communities. You come from a home where there's no food to eat, where your father might be abusing you. But you have the collective of your friendship, the collective of the people that you're with, who can create that supportive scaffolding around you. And I want my children to be able to be agents of love and kindness.
I hear what you're saying, because we're also raising our children to believe that, you know, only your family is your family. Whereas I assume the thing about Phoenix is, you know, the street was your family and the street would take care of you, right? And I don't think we have that anymore. So when you say the love, that, you know, if your father is abusing you, it's okay. You don't have to get the love from him, you know, and it's not going to come from him. But it's okay to then go and, you know, find it in other places.
And you can tell someone.
Yes.
Right? Because you're with other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned my first recipes. My mother was working, and my best friend Mina would be showing me how to make a fish curry. That's where I first learned how to cook a fish curry. My dad died. My friends were my structure. They were my heart family. You know, and they helped me through those things. I don't even know. Do you know your neighbors' names? Okay, maybe you do.
well, I've just moved in somewhere else,
Okay.
but the other ones I definitely knew. It was Suzanne, and there was Ron, and there was... No,
Okay.
you kind of
I've got
know
Earl
them.
on the one side, but generally, you know, we don't, because you come in and out of your gates, and we need to, it's not only where we live, perhaps in the suburbs, but it's everywhere in South Africa where we can start to be a part of each other's lives. The more we cleave together, the more the tapestry of our country and nation building is strengthened.
Did you hear that? Now, would you die or kill for your religious faith? That was not a difficult question for Iman Rapetti to answer. She'd abandoned a promising job as a journalist in South Africa to become a Muslim. Religion and martyrdom were two concepts she fully understood and would have sacrificed if asked. On the other side of this, her relationship with religion and having to unlearn God. We'll be back. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC3. Iman Rapetti's book titled Becoming Iman, An Adventure Through Rebellion, Religion and Reason tells the story of a young girl growing up in Phoenix and details the journey of the change and shift in her faith. So much of the transition was about letting go, a jarring transformation from a Vanessa who was known by her family to be the wild one, the crazy one with the crazy hairstyles, torn jeans, to a simple life of face veils, hair, and entire body covered while navigating the streets of Iran. She lived in the Islamic Republic of Iran for 2 years, where she also worked on a current affairs TV show for the state broadcaster before returning to South Africa. And this Iran gives me palpitations when you write about it, because you gave birth to your firstborn there. Yeah, that story.
Yeah, it is. It's gasp-worthy, Anele.
I never really had contractions. Let's just start there. But I felt your contractions through the book. Okay, I was just like, this woman is gonna put me off having another baby. Okay, let's talk about that transition, going from being, Vanessa Rapetti to being Iman Rapetti.
I mean, it's just something that happened so organically, and I always laugh because my friends laugh at me. They're like, Iman, when you became Muslim, you didn't need to do like all of these things. Why were you so hectic, you know?
Because you're an extremist.
And that's the thing. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I'm totally invested in something, or I'm not. And for me, that's the most honest way to live. So when I became Muslim, it took a while, about 1.5 years or so, before I finally ended up in Iran, after being on Auntie Felicia Mbuza's subtle show, by the way.
Look at you, honey.
Look at you.
Look at you.
And so I began to dress as a Muslim. But for me, all of the outward appearance of Islam, for me, was secondary. I was in love with the philosophical ideas of Islam, the ways to live in the world, charity, generosity, all of this kind of thing. And then wearing the stuff was almost incidental to that journey. But later on, it became very important, especially when you live in a country like Iran, where it's the law. You have to cover up.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting kind of evolution into owning myself in that space, and then all of the questions it threw up and the complexities it threw up. But giving birth in that hospital was no piece of cake, and I really thought it was going to be, everything is private, but you line up there, and as I write, everyone's baby arrivals portals facing everybody else, and you're just going through the most,
What was the bigger transition for you? Moving from being Vanessa to Iman, and then, transitioning to Muslim, or moving from South Africa to Iran?
They were different in their own ways. I mean, moving geographies meant leaving my family and everything that was familiar to me. That was heart-wrenching, because I really love my aunties. I love my mother. I love my brother. I love my sister. But leaving, but then leaving, like changing religions.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Christianity was a very deep thing to me. It was a soul thing. I worked in our youth committees. I did a lot of outreach work and so on. But I'm a person who navigates by reason, and I'm willing to surrender my emotion if the doctrine that I'm looking at makes more sense and requires replacement or substitution. And so I did it, and I left, and I went to Iran. But it was painful.
Would you say your deep-rooted loyalty to Christianity, right, was also fueled by the fact that it's what made your dad transform from being an abusive husband to being a religious man who was a family man?
And that's why, Anele, when we appraise people, even though you might not subscribe to religion, when we make judgments about people who hold on to faith, because faith is important to them, because it does have the ability in their own minds to transform them, like it did with my father. That for me was a powerful lesson in the potency of belief in something. And my father found that potency, and it worked for him. It transformed his fists into open palms that he embraced my mother with, that he caressed her cheek with. And it took me so far, you know, that belief and that system took me so far, and something else happened, which took me a few steps further. But in being in it, in such a personal and committed way, made me realize that even though I stand outside the fold of religion today, I can understand why people are there. And I can understand why they need it and why it's important.
And you can see what it does for certain people. You know, the reason you are a good person is because of your faith. So I have no room to be judging. And
we're so judgmental in society.
Are. Let me tell you, oh, your Bible is a fairy tale book. Guys, like, how do you tell someone that that's what they believe in, guys?
Look, part of me is, you know, we've got to share consciousness, right? So if you change points of view, share that knowledge with people. But the way we do it in society is so aggressive. It's so combative. And
it's so final. It's a, I am going to tell you what I think about you, and I will not allow you to say anything else.
Dogma.
You know what I'm saying? Here, go and, here's what I'm saying, go and deal with it. And I find less and less of a conversation happening, because I don't mind that you disagree. Kaya always says to us, guys, don't beg to differ, just differ. You know, don't put such an onus on the fact that you are now disagreeing with what I am saying.
Because this is the thing. You bring your dogma, I bring mine, but then we can't see each other because we're too busy looking through our dogma. And it's perhaps also necessary in our country at this time, is that for us to really break out of our echo chambers, for us to break out of our familiar patterns that reassure us that life is okay. We will continue to perpetuate the false belief that everything is okay in South African society. And it's not. We need to be more approximated to each other. We need to be real about where we all are collectively, so we can do that work together.
We need to talk about who we are to each other. So, you said your dad hit you once in your life, right?
Oh, it was a tight club. It was hard.
Girl, I felt it off the pages. It
to went the wall.
So when is this after he's become a reformed man?
Yeah, this is after the Reformation.
Yeah, so
but this is parents now.
Okay.
You know, I got beat. Let us not be under any illusion, Anele, not by my father, by the way. That was the one and only time he struck me. My mother. And you know how colored, well, in fact, all women, you know how they beat their kids. You will, and every syllable, every word was another, you know, another beat
just
down.
Like I just wanted to run out of words. You like...
And you're running away. And you know what the crime was?
Yeah. A girl, you deserved it.
Oh, you don't do that to your mother.
Who did you?
My mother.
Oh. She wasn't
having it.
You were asking for an ocean of waves,
exactly.
Right? So you said you vowed that you'd never forgive him after he slapped you, right?
Because I loved him so much.
And this is, it marvels me that, and it's almost a warming thing, you know, there's this man who, you know, was physically abusive towards your mother, then he transformed. But not once do you ever talk badly of him, even when you did regard him as a bit of a monster for beating up your mother, right? Where was that love stored through the dark times where at times you'd be standing between your parents so that your father wouldn't hit your mother?
I don't know, Anele, because it ties into a conversation that we have every day in South African society. What is the pathology of men who hit their women? I understand it a little bit better now because we are having this conversation in our country. Then I didn't understand it, but I just knew that something had to make sense about how he was able to love and at the same time be so violent to my mother. What was happening in the slipstream of his own consciousness? What happened to him as a boy? What happened to him as a child? I didn't have the words to articulate it then. I understand it better now. But then again, we were kids, right? We're kids at the time. We love unconditionally. We love unconditionally. We love sometimes without being able to justify that love. It's only later that we have the efficiency and the vehicle of words
to make
sense of it.
Time for a quick ad break. When we return from the break, we chat about her contemplating suicide, her philosophy on happiness, wholeness, being a mom, and of course, becoming Iman. And we're back. This is Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. Iman Rapetti has interviewed many of South Africa's movers and shakers, as well as celebrities like Oprah, Richard Branson, politicians such as former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, Rapetti, Dennis Goldberg, advocate George Bizos, former President Thabo Mbeki, former President Jacob Zuma, former First Lady of the United States of America, Michelle Obama, former First Lady of South Africa, Anele Mdoda, and the list goes on and on and on. She has enjoyed a thriving career, but it got to a point in her life where her children needed her more, and after 11 years as the anchor, she decided to leave the news channel to focus on family life. There's a part in your book where you say, no to self, book a shrink, right? Obviously writing a book, it's therapy. Do you still need the shrink after this book?
Don't we always?
True.
Don't new issues pop up where old ones have been resolved?
Yeah.
That's part of the growth, right?
Yeah.
In life, sadly.
Okay.
Can I book you an appointment? I know
Yeah,
someone
no,
really
you
good.
can.
Okay.
We can do a group session.
I think so.
We'll hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Yeah. So you don't decide today to leave tomorrow. It's a decision that sits in your mind for a good 6 months, right? When you decide to leave being a news anchor.
Oh, and that was a long time brewing.
Yeah.
That's a long time brewing. I mean, can you imagine, for all journalists in this country, I think we all suffer from some type of PTSD, and this is political stress and trauma disorder in our country.
Yeah.
You got to keep your phone on. You don't know when the next cabinet reshuffle is going to happen. You don't know when some other news might drop. You don't know who's going to pass away. It's been hectic.
Also having to maintain relationships so people can keep you top of mind when it comes to the interviews, the scoops, you know, the jobs, right? So, and not that you find yourself talking to people you don't like, but I mean...
Sometimes it happens.
But you do find yourself having to keep soil moist where you wouldn't care about it ordinarily, right?
Well, you see, this is the thing. When you're a journalist in this country, you are so intrinsically and personally, maybe not personally, but so closely connected to every development that's happening.
Yeah.
A real journalist for me is just, it's in your blood. Every story is a story that you are interested in because it all ties into, I think, the reason why we do the work that we do.
Yeah.
It's to hold people accountable. It's to be a kind of champion for people in the absence of that network of connection and being heard. You know, you used a term at the beginning, the voice for the voiceless. My attitude is, the people who aren't heard in our society have a voice, Anele. They're just not being listened to. What we do as journalists and what we do in the work that we do is to amplify it, to make it louder, is to say, you won't see this part of our country, we will make you see this part of our country. Because we need to look at ourselves. We need to take a good hard look at ourselves and be able to deal with the dysfunctionalities. And giving people I mean, people know what to do. They knew what to do in apartheid, which is why people left the country.
They just
and
chose
they died,
not to do it.
You know, and others chose not to do it. They chose to blinker themselves. And information to me is the most important basic human right in our country at this stage.
So,
along with data, of course.
Yes, please. Come now, do not forget about that. This is something that I loved about your book, and at the same time it's something that I hated, is that there is a big absence of your career in the book. Was that a conscious decision?
Not really. I mean, so my attitude towards writing was, okay, what am I feeling needs to be told the most? And every day when I opened up, stories would kind of parachute into my consciousness, and then I would complexify them, I would muscularize them, and then they made it into the book. I didn't make a conscious decision to not write about my work. But I thought my work was there for everybody to see anyway.
That's true. So you'd be literally doing revision.
Precisely.
Yeah, we know that. We saw you there. We know this. We know that.
You know, and this maybe will be more meaningful. Maybe the work would be more about a project of narcissism, perhaps. And I wanted this to be more of a personal project and a real project, as you said.
Okay, so we got a message for you.
What?
From someone.
Ooh. Is it the man in my future? Because, you know, I wrote to him at the end of my book.
No, it's not him, but I'm pretty sure after this show in that dress, the man in your future is going to be around the corner.
Who is?
Please play her a message.
Hi Iman, what a privilege to be able to send this video to you. I've recorded it because I want you to know how proud I am of you. And I know it's not been an easy journey putting this book together, and that you've had to dig deep into some of the darkest times of your life to be able to do so. But I know that you're going to deserve all the accolades that will come with this book. And what I love most about you is what you see is what you get with you. And the person we hear on radio, interacting with listeners, talking to people with sincerity simplicity and honesty. That's exactly you. It's not just your radio personality. So I think we're going to learn more about that beautiful side of you in your book. I look forward to tucking into it myself. All the best to you, and I know you're going to fly even higher with this book. Lots of love.
You know why that makes me emotional, Anele? And by the way, thank you so much to Joanne for being so generous and for being so supportive. Is what I've learned through this entire journey is that we are not alone, and there are people who are invested in our success, who help us unfurl our wings that maybe were so tightly held because we were so afraid to just show ourselves and reveal ourselves. And I've been very lucky to be in spaces where that's been allowed to happen. At ENCA, I worked with a really supportive team. At Power, the listeners evolve me every single day. And having colleagues who support the work that I do, yourself included, allows me to think that, well, then anything is possible. And that is a superpower, and we need to do it more for each other. And I really appreciate that so much.
So there's so many people in the industry who are a big deal in the industry, and you are their favorite person, right?
No.
I saw Andile Khumalo,
oh, he's my homie.
And he wrote, you know, he's like, she is the LeBron James, you know, she's the one you give the ball to. You know, when somebody who's been in broadcasting, on every level of broadcasting, including media owning, right, says that about you, surely you just like, okay, I'm good.
This is what full, you know, as I'm sitting here and taking everything that you're saying, I'm so full, Anele. And that's what has sustained me. You mentioned in the previous segment about being suicidal and doubting yourself and wanting to end things. I'm not saying that we live because of other people, because that's a dangerous space to be in, because when they're not there, what do you do? But what they do is constantly provide a gallery of reminders of why you matter and why you're vital and why your voice is important. And if I didn't have that over time, I would have gone mad. And I would have thought genuinely that I was alone.
She gained a reputation as a fearless journalist and broadcaster, but she's also a dedicated mother who's tackled issues of divorce, self-image, like she was talking about, happiness, like she was talking about, in a very admirable way, all of which detailed in her new memoir, Becoming Iman. More on this book and her and life after the break.
We just wanna party, party just for you. We just want the money, money just for you. I know you wanna party, party just for me. Girl, you got me dancing, dancing, shaking free. We just wanna party, party just for you. We just want the money, money just for you. I know you wanna party, party just for me. Girl, you got me dancing. Dancing, shaking free.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Look how I'm living now. Police be tripping now. Yeah, this is America. Guns in my area. I got the strap. I gotta carry 'em. Yeah, I'ma go into this. Yeah, this is gorilla. Yeah, I'ma go get the bag.
Welcome back. It's the final segment of our conversation with seasoned broadcaster Iman Rapetti, who I've also just learned that the girl loves herself some fast cars. She likes ornamental tea sets, and she also likes the word triumph. But most importantly, she likes hip hop. And this is why I played that, right? Because you, and I was watching you on Training SA the other night, and you were rapping, and there you are, Tupac, Dear Mamaring. And so I know the school of hip hop that you come from. It's the conscious, it's the messaging, it's the service of hip hop, and it's the nice music ultimately. Do you find that hip hop is going back to what you fell in love with?
It depends because, you know, we're perhaps in a more stylized environment. The themes that maybe were spoken about during the era of, you know, Tupac and so on have kind of intersected in a different way because we have expectations as society moves to evolve to a higher place. There can't be this cognitive dissonance between, you know, laws that make it free for us to exist, you know, in our full power in society, but at the same time victimize and marginalize. So those voices I find are becoming highly distilled in ways that are different to old school hip hop. But I'm not an expert, and I don't want to, you know, pee off the people that are. But what I think it points to, these are all signposts for me, Anele. There's music that I disagree with sometimes where there's hyper-masculinity, toxic masculinity, hyper-misogyny, and so on. But I'm trying to locate it in the place at which it has its genesis. Why is that? And what is this root dysfunctionality in our society that we're not talking about, that we're not addressing? And that for me is what the provocation is.
You said something and then you moved on quickly like you didn't say it. It's a good thing you wrote a book because it means all these gems are somewhere now and they live somewhere, right? You said we have an expectation in ourselves to move to the next level and move to a higher place, right? Do you find that that's an expectation of yourself where you constantly like, okay, this is you, but this level is complete. You've reached the highest score in this level. Move to the next level.
Yeah. I always say, the sentence doesn't come with the full stop because we continue, even in this moment, to write our stories and to be evolved.
Yeah.
But we can't do that if we're not open and our consciousness isn't open.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned, which is a beautiful lesson for me in Iran, amidst all the other crazy things that happened, was the process of learning to die to your ego. That constantly we have to practice a kind of positive asceticism where we're in society, but we're so conscious that materialism does not define us, that being popular can't define us. We have to go back to our essence and what that provokes in us in society. Are we kinder? Are we nicer? Are we more welcoming? Do we live a life that is not separate from people who suffer in our society every day?
Do you have to travel to get to quiet places to think about the things that you think about?
Hip-hop just opens up. It opens up the archives. You know, our mothers had the kists at the bottom of their bed?
Yes.
There's a kist in my head, and that happens. So I was listening to, I suppose, trap, Post Malone, you know, that kind of music. And I listen to it because my kids do. And I want to be connected to their energy and what they're listening to. But music is so provocative, and it opens all of these different doors. I love silence, and I think it's good to have that. And so I'm a bit of a contradiction. I like the loud, like you do, and you know.
But you like the quiet.
I also like to be supremely quiet and just to be able to ruminate a little bit.
I'll tell you what didn't look quiet is your trip to New York with your girls.
You were stalking me on Facebook? Oh my word. We tore Harlem up, honey. We tore Harlem up.
And how amazing is Harlem? How are those gentlemen folk from Harlem?
The gentlemen,
The gentlemen folk of Harlem.
I know, there's just, I mean, you know, you don't even need to go to an art gallery or a museum. You just stand on a street corner and say, hallelujah, amen.
By you. So what was it like with you and your friends? What were you guys getting up to? It was after you hung up your microphone after 11 years of broadcasting, and then you were just like, okay, I'm taking me and my girls, we're going to New York.
I needed time to decompress, honey. I needed time to find me. And, you know, I tweeted actually that it was so great to not have the deadlines. Sumitra! Oh my God. You guys. Oh my friends. Oh my word. I was wondering why the couch is here. I thought you were going to make me lie down and psychoanalyze me. Why is she here?
She's here so we can talk about the men in Harlem.
Oh my word.
I came to shine on you, Shine. I didn't tell them all the secrets.
I spoke to you before I came on air. You're so, I'm going to pay you back for this. You're so devious.
This is me, devious. Sumitra, we want to know your Iman. Who's your Iman?
I just said I didn't tell all the secrets.
Okay. Okay, but tell us what kind of traveler she is. Because you know when you're in a group of girls like that, one wants to be a tourist, now we must go see the Statue of Liberty. The other just wants to eat, because I hear you guys just sit and eat.
We love food.
No, we love food.
Okay.
We love food, we love talking about food.
Fantasizing about food.
But let me just tell you that if I didn't do her visa application, she wouldn't have gotten on the plane.
Really now?
I hate admin.
She just said, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I said, okay, I'll help you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too much, help me. We took an hour with the photo.
Yeah.
So she's crazy, but
so she's like my backup, you know. She knows that there are certain things that and I think that's the beauty of complementary friendships is that they amplify your strengths and they step into the gap of your weaknesses, and together it's all full and whole.
Yeah.
And that's what my friendship circle does for me. I'm grateful to be blessed with really amazing friends.
Okay, so besides admin, what is she really good at, but she doesn't realize that she's amazing at that?
Oh, she's great at making platters. Did you not see the pictures of the platters?
Okay.
That's her thing. She has all different shapes and sizes of platters, and she pulls them together. In 5 minutes, she can pull everything together, whatever she finds in the fridge, pulls it together, and she'll pose, and it'll look fabulous. You think you're at a cocktail party.
I love detail.
I said to her she must release a cookbook.
You made a biryani the other day. The biryani was delicious.
You see
delicious. We do love to cook, yeah.
We do.
Maybe you guys should do a
just getting
collective
better.
cookbook, Sumitra.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like-
we may eat everything
Yeah.
and not actually write anything
I think
in the
Anele's
cookbook.
looking for secrets.
No, not even. I'm just here. I'm just like marveling at. Do you know what it is? Because you also say in your book that in your divorce you found that you didn't trust women, right? It was just like the betrayal of it all. Just you couldn't find yourself being close to women. So when I read that and then I see your post and where you are, I feel like life's a full circle because the very thing you didn't trust is the very thing that healed you.
Oh, you put that so beautifully. You should write that down.
Okay.
TM. but there's a maturity that comes over time and through hardship and betrayal about relationships with sisters. I've had some toxic relationships with the closest people to me. They were so close, they were able to put a knife in my back without me even realizing until I fell to the ground, dying, which is what was literally happening, not literally,
but
figuratively happening to me. And then, you kind of get to a place where you realize you can't own people. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And that to live a life of skepticism and cynicism is to deprive yourself of full joy and risk-taking. And I'd rather be there again, even if something bad happens.
This was good.
This was worth it.
This was worth it.
But I know she ain't ever going to betray me. I know where she lives. I know where her children are.
I know where you rest your head, madam. Let's wrap it up. Sumitra, what would you like to say to Iman in this moment of, I think this is her 4th child, actually. This is your 4th born.
Yeah.
And I want the entire country to get the book. In this moment, what are you saying to her?
You know, we walked this road together. Obviously, she wrote the book, but we heard about all the pain, and we had to read through the chapters, and it was such an exciting time. And it all started in the garage, drinking wine, and Iman said, I'm going to write a book. And, a few months later, somebody was actually making an offer to her, go and write a book. So, those times are really important, and we've become each other's support structure. And I think as women, we need that. We face so many challenges on a daily basis, and we want to be the best mothers, we want to have thriving careers, we want to do it all, and we want to do our best. And the wine drinking, yes, a lot of people think that, this is just fun, but it's so important for us,
I've never
it's
heard
very important.
the virtues of wine drinking being presented in quite the serious way.
It's dead.
Listen, you two, go off into the sunset and drink more wine. Thank you for your time. Iman, you're amazing. This was a wonderful hour. Sumitra, thanks for the surprise. Look, time flies when you're having fun, especially when you're with your broadcasting friends on the show, right? That's all we have time for today, sadly. Iman Rapetti is out of here, but you must get a book, Becoming Iman, an adventure through rebellion, religion, and reason. Thank you so much to you two ladies for this deep conversation. Thank you so much to Sumitra Naidu for the surprise appearance. From myself and the rest of the team, you have yourselves a wonderful weekend. On Monday, we're with another author, best-selling author, Kate Mose. Hope I'm saying her name right. She'll be on the show, and we'll also be looking at the business of publishing. So if you want to be like Iman and write your own book, Monday's the day, yo.